and welcome back to Nathan Bell's podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. So today, Nate would like to talk about voting.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say a couple of things about voting. I've always thought at length about voting because I think, I understand that there are nations where people are deprived of any input into how the government runs the country, and thank God we don't live in one of those nations. There's a lot of problems with democracy. You can say that democracy gives voice to fools and idiots and bigots, and it gives fools and idiots and bigots the opportunity to express their views. But it's better, in my mind, that people have the right to express their views and speak their mind than we live in a country where the public and the population are silenced and the government dictates the affairs of the nation to everyone. So thank God we have the right to speak our mind and to have input in the political process in this country. God forbid we would live in a country where we have no input and no say, and the government is tyrannical and controlling everyone and dictating to everyone how things are going to be. I've said in previous videos, now I'm a bit of a communist as well. I believe in equality and everyone should have enough wealth to survive and live, but I'll never accept a one-party system. And some people can only see left, some people can only see right, and they can't see in the middle. I like to say I can see in the middle, and I'm a moderate, and I can see good ideas on the left and the right. I don't support any racist, bigoted ideas or any hateful ideas from the right wing, but when it comes to business and economics, and even matters of military and defence, I can certainly see some sense in some right-wing arguments. So I do believe we have to have left and right, and that we should debate and we should discuss ideas on both sides of the spectrum. And I encourage people to consider ideas on both sides of the spectrum, and this is why I'm a Democrat, and I believe we have to have at least two parties representing a variety of views. I'm very big on variety of ideas and not having, and I'm very big on the idea that there's more than one way to do things right. And that there should be a variety of ideas up for discussion, and we should all debate until we reach a conclusion about what is the right way forward, and that at all times we have to remain open to changing our ideas, evolving and taking a new direction. So that's why I'm a Democrat, and I will never accept a one-party system. So I can't support a one-party system, and that's why I don't like communism. But what I wanted to say about voting was it's interesting. As far as I understand, in America, voting isn't mandatory. It's viewed as a right. And in Australia, voting is mandatory and it's viewed as a responsibility. So the idea in Australia is it's your responsibility to participate in the democratic process. That's why it's mandatory to vote. And I think that has something to do with the fact that we should appreciate and have gratitude to the fact that we have a democratic process. And it's about participating in the community and having an obligation and a responsibility to participate in the community through voting. That's why voting is mandatory in Australia. But I actually sit on the American thinking side of things, and I say voting is not a responsibility, it is a right, because my view is someone is not obligated to voice their opinion where they're either disinterested or not interested in participating. And I have a view, as I said in my view about dropout culture, that a person is not obligated to participate in a community if they don't wish to. I believe that we choose what community we identify with. So I might live in Australia, I might have been born in Australia, but I might say I don't identify as Australian, and there may be various reasons why I say that. It may be because things in the country offend me. And I bring it back to like the man who didn't salute Hitler in that famous photo. He was an individual living in Nazi Germany, and he rejected the hegemony of the Nazi Party's mind control over the German population, and he refused to participate in the hype and the mind control of Nazi Germany. So I say, if I was living in Nazi Germany, I would reject the Nazi community. And there were a lot of Nazi supporters in Germany and a lot of people who agreed with the Nazi Party. And that's an example of when you're a part of a community, but you fundamentally disapprove of what the community is doing. So you have the right to reject the community. So you have the right not to participate in the community. So yeah, again, it's like if I was living in Nazi Germany, I would reject the community, I would reject the Nazi hype, and I would not participate and I would not conform. So it's on that principle and that idea that I say we don't have we fundamentally are not obligated to participate in the community. If we disagree, we have the right to reject the community. So we don't have to voice an opinion and we don't have to participate. So I say voting is a right. A person who is disinterested in politics, as much as it frustrates me, I've just come to accept as I've got older that some people are never going to care about political issues. Some people just want to listen to pop music, have sex, go to restaurants, watch movies, and they're never going to be interested in politics. So I don't believe in forcing people to participate in the political coordination of the country. I believe it is a person's right to choose their own priorities and what they believe is important in life and what they want to focus on and what they want their life to be about. So if a person is apathetic and disinterested in politics, I wish they would be engaged. I would like to encourage them to be engaged, but at the end of the day, if they're not interested in engaging, that's fine. They don't have to. It's their life, and their life should be about the things that they think are important. So I don't view voting as a responsibility as we do in this country. In this country, we view voting as a mandatory obligation to society and a responsibility. I sit in the American camp where I say voting should be voluntary, and I believe voting is a right, and I also believe you're not obligated to voice your opinion if you don't want to. You don't have to. It should be a right. Why are you forced to voice an opinion? If you don't want to voice an opinion, you don't have to. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Nobody should be forced to do anything they don't want to do. And I also say about voluntary voting and mandatory voting, do we want people who aren't engaged in politics voting? They're not going to vote well. They're not going to make informed votes. Sometimes we're forcing people to vote who absolutely know nothing about politics and don't care and aren't informed and aren't educated and can't make a considered decision about who should run the country. And these idiots are voting and voicing an opinion because they're forced to. Sometimes I think people like that we're better off if we just tell them, if you're not interested in participating and learning how politics works and understanding the issues and making an informed vote, don't bother. Just don't bother voting, because your vote is worthless, because it's not informed, it's not educated, and you don't know what you're talking about. So I've abandoned forcing people who aren't interested in voting to vote, and I've come to think that voting should be voluntary and not an obligation, and viewed as a right, not a responsibility. So there's some of my views on voting, very different to the thinking in this country and very in line with American thinking. So drop a comment in the comment section if you disagree with me and what your thoughts are about voting. Is it a right or a responsibility?